Okay, sir. So the first question is because the President Xi Jinping visit is his first state visit to the Philippines, and so we want to know how do you comment about the bilateral relations of China and Philippines in the past 2 years?
Okay. Well, the President Xi Jinping's visit to the Philippines is a milestone in our bilateral relations. This is going to be the first state visit by a Chinese president in 13 years, and it is a testament to the deepening improvement in the friendship and cooperation between the Philippines and China. Although President Xi has been to the Philippines before, most recently during the 2015 APEC summit. At the last time he was here, it was not a bilateral visit, it was to attend a multilateral summit. So this time it's going to be a state visit, a bilateral visit. And it will be an opportunity for President Duterte to return the hospitality he received from President Xi during President Duterte's visit to China, and also an opportunity to exchange views and to be able to chart the future course of friendly relations between the two countries.
Sir, we know President Duterte and President Xi Jinping met several times before. So how do you think the meeting between the leaders in the past for several times, how this meeting of two presidents, how they affect the bilateral relations of two countries?
Well, the meeting at the highest level between President Duterte and President Xi is an important occasion because through these high-level meetings, the two leaders are able to achieve a deeper understanding of each other's position and to be able to attain consensus that guides the direction of Philippine-China relations. If you will recall, during President Duterte's historic state visit to China in October 2016, it marked a turnaround in the relations between our two countries, from a contentious period into a period of friendly relations and the start of a deeper cooperation and partnership. So again, you have this occasion, top-level meeting, a summit meeting, and this actually is a positive sign that the two countries are determined to continue on the positive trajectory of our bilateral relations.
So that means this is a very important event in the bilateral relations of two countries.
Definitely. This will mark a new chapter in our relations. One that is characterized by deepening partnership as well as a higher level of cooperation. The underlying premise between this is the consensus that was achieved, mainly to accept and to be able to discuss the differences between the two sides, the contentious areas in our relations, to manage it and to prevent it from becoming a crisis. At the same time, that there are non-contentious areas, a whole realm of areas where the Philippines and China can cooperate where there are no disputes whatsoever. Whether in agriculture, in science, technology, education, infrastructure cooperation, all of this, connectivity, all of these are areas where I think where the two leaders will seek to fast-track our cooperation.
Sir, President Xi will arrive at November 20th. So tell us if there are some activities about his visit during his visit in Manila.
Well, at this time, what I understand is that, of course, there will be a welcoming ceremony at the Malacanang Palace, a grand welcoming ceremony hosted by President Duterte himself. There will also be an opportunity for President Xi to lay a wreath at the Rizal Monument, and then the two leaders will hold talks with their entourage, and they will exchange views and chart the course of our improving relations.
So can you tell us more about which topics or is any topic that President Xi and President Duterte will discuss in the meeting? And I think all the media is concerned about it.
Well, I think, of course, the two sides, the two leaders can discuss anything under the sun.
Yes.
They will cover a whole range of bilateral, regional, and international issues, including, of course, how to further improve the cooperation, the areas of cooperation. They will preside over the signing of several agreements over a broad spectrum of areas where the two countries will cooperate even further. And also, of course, as usual, when it comes to the Philippines and China, the South China Sea issue. For the Philippines, the West Philippine issue is a major issue, and we expect this also to be discussed. But overall, I think the atmosphere will be friendly, cooperative, and at the same time frank in terms of the conversation that we hope to achieve between the two leaders. So we look forward to a intense but friendly discussion between the two top leaders of our two countries.
So for the Philippines, you mentioned the South China Sea issue, and besides this issue, is any other area that Philippines want to further development or further the cooperation with China?
Well, we have deepening cooperation in terms of how to fight extremism, how to fight terrorism, and also how to combat the scourge of illegal drugs. So we expect more agreements and more cooperation in this area, including the reconstruction of Marawi. China has been supportive of the reconstruction effort, and also China has built several rehab centers. So I think there will be, more cooperation in terms of fighting illegal drugs, particularly cooperation between the two armed forces as well as the two coast guards in this respect.
Sir, can you tell us how because after the 2006, I think the bilateral relations and the cooperation of two countries had a big improvement. So can you tell us what's the ano ang mga natamumpung ng bilateral relations or ng cooperation in the past 2 years?
Well, with the turnaround in the political, economic, and overall relations, the tangible benefits are now being felt by the two countries as well as the people in both countries. The most evident, of course, has been in China. You see Philippine bananas and pineapple and other tropical fruits being sold in the Chinese markets. In the Philippines, you see now over a million Chinese tourists who come to the Philippines, who go to Boracay, who go to Palawan, Cebu, Bohol. So there are now more direct flights between Chinese cities and the major cities as well as tourist spots in the Philippines. This is the most evident sign. In addition, bilateral trade has increased significantly. Recently, I was in Shanghai with the Department of Trade and Industry Secretary, Ramon Lopez, and we were there with the Philippine exhibitors and traders, who were selling their agricultural products and other products and services to China, because this was an opportunity, a selling opportunity. China was buying, and was not selling at all. So there will be more of this, I think. Also, we have detected a very significant increase in Chinese investment in manufacturing, in real estate, and of course there is a plan to set up an industrial zone. So we expect to see more Chinese investment. There has also been a significant increase of Chinese personnel who are working in the Philippines, in gaming sites or call centers. And while there are positive signs to this, we also have to regulate the aspects that may have some negative consequences. But overall, I think the benefits are quite clear. More Philippine students studying in China, more Philippine scholars having exchanges with China. Between the two governments, there's a lot of exchanges going on. The two foreign ministries have now resumed, more consultative mechanism. And then there is the bilateral consultative mechanism on the South China Sea, where the Philippines and China are able to discuss issues of common concern. And this is where we discuss the sensitive issues, which in the past was the subject of protest notes or newspaper, accounts. But now we're able to discuss it in a peaceful, diplomatic manner, in a thorough and frank but friendly manner through the bilateral consultative mechanism. So generally, I think what has happened is that our relations have been able to move forward because we basically follow, from the point of view of the Philippines, a two-track policy. We think we should separate the contentious areas from the non-contentious. And there are a lot of areas which are non-contentious, and to fast-track this, because this was affected before when the disputes dominated. We don't think our relations should be defined by the disputes, but we should discuss this and manage it so that it will not turn into a crisis, but it's into something in which we can understand each other's position and slowly find areas of agreement and areas of cooperation that we can pursue.
Sir, so of course we have confidence about the future of the bilateral relations. And you said the President's visit is a milestone in the relations. So, in your opinion, what's the significance of this? What's the significance of the President's visit to the bilateral relations in the future?
Well, I think the significance basically is that it is an opportunity, More than 2 years after we have achieved a turnaround, we've been able to normalize relations, we've been able to improve the relations, and we have achieved, in a sense, what President Duterte said, we're enjoying the best of our relationship. But there is more to come. There is a lot more potential to develop. So this will chart the course for the future direction of our relationship, which will lead to a higher level of cooperation, of partnership on different spheres. The Philippines pursues an independent foreign policy. We want to be friends to all and enemy to none. And because of that, developing friendly relations with China is a component part of this, of our independent foreign policy. While we maintain our friendship with our traditional friends and partners and allies, we'd like to also maintain and develop good relations with China, because this is really based on historic bonds that go back centuries, More than 600 years ago, the Sultan of Sulu went to Beijing, to offer a hand of friendship to the Ming Dynasty emperor and to seek preferential trade arrangement. This was a century before Magellan and the Spaniards came, before Spanish colonialism, came to the Philippines. And even some Chinese historical accounts point to exchanges and contacts as far back as more than a millennium, as far back as the Tang Dynasty. So what we're having is really a reaffirmation of the historic bonds between our two countries.
Sir, you mentioned the independent policy of the Philippines, and we know the Philippines is a country coordinator of the relations between China and Asia. And we also know that in the Asian summit, or Asian China summit, or 2001 summit, the President Duterte lead a statement about China-Asian relations. So, how can Philippines to improve the relations between China and Asia?
Well, the Philippines, last year was the chair for ASEAN, and this year we are now the coordinator for China-ASEAN relations. We hope we can, take advantage of our improving relations with China to further improve the relationship between China and ASEAN. China and ASEAN already have a strategic partnership, and they have a vision for improving this further to the year 2030. So we hope we can contribute in this regard to deepen this friendship, this partnership. In particular, as the coordinator between China and ASEAN, we want to play a positive, a constructive role in accelerating, the negotiations on the code of conduct. And we hope in the 3 years that we are the coordinator, that we can actually accomplish this task. We are committed to seeking an effective code of conduct between China and ASEAN, and hopefully achieving this, during the period that we are the coordinator between the China and ASEAN.
Sir, you mentioned the COC and also the many times about South China Sea. So nowadays, I think what the Philippines or how Philippines will improve this discussion between China and ASEAN in COC.
Well, the COC is aimed at trying to agree on the ground rules that will manage, the issues and the resulting tension in the South China Sea, so that the South China Sea can be turned into a sea of peace, friendship, and stability. Of course, the South China Sea is, we hope can be a sea that unites rather than divide our two sides, between China and ASEAN. The issues, the underlying issues of sovereignty and sovereign rights is an issue that is not easy to resolve in a short time. So the key is to be able to manage it. And so in the COC right now, what we're able to do is what we've been able to do is to achieve a single negotiating draft. So from drafts submitted by the different countries, 10 plus 1, 10 ASEAN countries and China, and a long draft, we are now going through the first reading to be able to merge it, to take out the overlapping parts, and to be able to make it more concise. And we expect it will take a first reading, which we hope can be accomplished by next year, but there will be a second and a third reading, and we start with the easy, parts to agree first. The most difficult, the most challenging ones, we will reserve for the latter part. And so this is a process that we're going through, but it helps to go through this process because we're able to achieve a deeper understanding of each other's concern, and hopefully in the end we can come up with an effective something that will set the standard for behavior, something that will guide the countries in terms of their conduct in the South China Sea, and something that will bound countries, to behave in a way that will be that will lead to the peaceful management and eventually the peaceful resolution of the underlying disputes on sovereignty and sovereign rights.
Sir, we know you are a very famous media person before you became the ambassador of Philippines in China, and you work for several famous global media. And so I think you have a very deep understanding about media's role in the relations. So how the next year, in 2019, is the China-ASEAN media exchange year. So how do you think the role or the effect the media can do in the bilateral relations of China and Philippines? For example, in the political, in the economic, or it's people-to-people exchange. What's the role or what's the effect of the media?
Well, I think media plays a critical role, plays a major role in terms of, you know, reporting on the situation, in explaining the situation to the public, in making sure, you know, information is power. And media plays a major role in informing the public about ASEAN, about China-ASEAN relations, about the South China Sea, the underlying issues. But it cuts both ways. If the media is not well informed, it can also mislead the public. So the critical thing here, as we go into the year of, you know, where we want to focus on the role of the media, is I think to facilitate more transparency, more information, so that media can learn more about the operation of ASEAN, about the negotiation between China and ASEAN on the COC, the issues involved, as well as for media professionals from ASEAN countries to be able to understand China, to visit China, and vice versa for Chinese media professionals to visit ASEAN countries and to understand the diverse culture, the diverse political systems, because we have differences in political systems, in cultural traditions, and at the same time we have commonalities. So this is the important role of media. It's to shed light, you know, to be able to inform the public, to be able to empower the public with information that can then be a support, that can then play a large role in supporting, you know, ASEAN unity, ASEAN centrality, and cooperation between China and ASEAN. This, to me, is the critical role of media.
So what about the media of China and Philippines? Is there any plan of Philippines to promote the exchanges or the cooperation between media and China and Philippines?
Actually, over the past year, one of the most satisfying aspect in terms of the improvement of the bilateral relations has been the increase in media exchanges, both from the government stations in the Philippines and the private newspapers and media networks who were able to send delegations to visit China, and vice versa from Chinese journalists who've been here. I think we need more of those, and we need it over a broader spectrum, including the provincial media, you know, the smaller media, so that we cover both the mainstream, the social, and the provincial media, the national and provincial, so that you know, right now a lot of media get their information from a few international news agencies. There is nothing like, you know, as a saying in China and in the West goes, seeing is believing, you know. There is nothing like witnessing something with your own eyes to understand. No matter how much you read, it is a deeper impression when you see it with your own eyes. So that's why more media exchanges, more reporting from China, from the Philippines, from different Asian countries would help in terms of trying to improve. And this is a very important instrument in terms of deepening understanding. And this is my own personal experience. It is when you bear witness, it is when you witness an event, when you cover an event, and you visit a place, that you gain a deeper understanding and you're able to report in a better way, in a more accurate and complete way.
Is there any actual plan, for example, invite Philippine media to cover in China and to support Chinese media to cover in the
Oh yes, part of the agreements that will be signed has to do with more media exchanges and more people-to-people exchanges. So I expect there will be an increase in the number of media exchanges next year.
So the follow-up question, because we all know you stay in China for many years and you also be the Philippine ambassador to China for 2 years. So what your message is to the Filipinos that they want to go to China or they don't familiar about China? If they want to go to China, for example, study for business or for work, what's the message for them?
Well, I think my general message is to keep an open mind, to try to understand China, because China, the rise of China is a crucial factor in this century, and it is important to understand, what drives the rise of China, what drives Chinese patriotism, the Chinese ideas, Chinese domestic and foreign policies. And so it is important for students to study the Chinese language, Chinese culture, for journalists to understand, and vice versa, for China to understand the Philippines too. So I would encourage, all the people in the Philippines to keep an open mind. We've learned a lot from the West as we grew up, but we have to learn also from Asia. The destiny of the Philippines is in Asia. This is where we're located. This is where there's a lot of dynamism right now. There's a lot of economic growth. The future will be determined to a certain extent by how Asia will be able to continue with its economic and political development. And the crucial part of that is China. Of course, there's also Japan, there is Korea, there is ASEAN unity and centrality. All of these are important. There is India, the rise of India, because we have to understand all this. But China being our close neighbor, our biggest neighbor, and with which we share the South China Sea as littoral states, it is very important to build the friendship and understanding. And the best way to do that is through actual experience, to deeper study, and through more communication with each other.
So what's the message for the Chinese people? If we know nowadays we have more and more Chinese want to go to Philippines for tourists, for business, and what's your message if you want to promote the business? What's the message?
I know there is now greater interest in China towards the Philippines. I think we welcome, the Chinese to visit, to work here, to come here, as long as, of course, when they're here, they observe the local laws and regulations. The same with Filipinos who are in China. But I think the key is to understand, the Philippines is an Asian country. We have commonalities, but it's also influenced by its history. Almost 300 to 400 years under Spain. Before that, we had traditional friendship. That was then, with the coming of Spain, and then the U.S. for almost 5 decades, and you could say up to now. And then, so you have a country that is quite cosmopolitan, that is quite open to foreign cultures, to international influence. And in a sense, I think this is something that people of China would appreciate very much. That's why you have a people that is friendly and hospitable in the Philippines. But I would encourage my people of China to go beyond Boracay, to go beyond the beaches of Boracay, beyond the tourist spots in Cebu and Bohol. Although these are important in terms of, having a good sample, a good taste of the variety of the Philippine culture and the natural wonders in the Philippines. But I think the important thing is to really achieve more people-to-people understanding, more educational exchanges, more communication. And this is the way, I think. I'm very happy that when I was in China, I came across a website, the 51 Talk, and I visited their office in Beijing, in Haidian. They also have a branch here in the Philippines. What is interesting there is the Chinese universities. And so I think this is actually turning, you know, a historical situation in the Philippines into an advantage because we're able to speak English and there's a big interest in China among Chinese people to speak English, that this is something as Asians we could learn from each other. So communication is key to deeper understanding and friendship.
So you mentioned communication is the key. So my last question is humbling request. Because CRI and Radio Filipina had a joint program called World China that year.
Yeah.
It's a radio program called World China Air in Philippines,
Yes.
also in Facebook, to introduce the China and the China-Philippine relations to the Philippine audience. And based now, our program is welcome for the overseas Filipinos, not only in China but in Dubai, in America. They basically view our program in Facebook. So can we ask you to deliver a short message for those Filipinos, for our Filipino audience, they want to know China?
Yeah.
A short message.
I think what is important is to understand Chinese culture. Of course, it's a challenge to learn the Chinese language, but there are ways and means to understand Chinese culture and to understand the Chinese mindset, how Chinese think, what their ideals are, how they view the world. Because I think this is a key to understanding China, and this is a key to promoting friendship and understanding. Because if we proceed from our own perspective alone, it will not be enough. What is important is to build the bridge of understanding, and the key is mutual understanding. But for Filipinos, our key challenge is to understand China, to know more about Chinese culture, why they think the way they do, why they act the way they do, to understand it on its own terms. And this is the key to a deeper understanding, which will help in terms of building a stronger bridge of cooperation and friendship in the future.
Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat din. Saan ka nag-aaral ng Tagalog? Sa Peking University?
Yeah. Nag-aaral ko ng Tagalog.